Welcome to a journey into a world where light is not just an element, but the essence of design. In Luminous Living, we explore how modern architecture transcends structure and function, using light, materials, and space to create something that feels poetic, effortless, graceful, and profoundly alive. Luminous living is more than maximizing sunlight. It's a philosophy. It represents the seamless union between architectural minimalism and soulful expression. It's about crafting spaces where light becomes part of the emotional landscape, shaping the mood, rhythm, and experience of everyday living through design that breathes. Before concrete is poured or glass is framed, the most visionary architects consider light as the starting point. How does it enter? How does it dance across surfaces? The way light interacts with space determines everything from form to function, becoming the silent narrator of architectural storytelling. Luminous homes don't just invite light, they frame it like art. Floor-to-ceiling windows, clear stories, and skylights become instruments of orchestration, directing beams of natural light to accentuate textures, shift atmospheres, and redefine interior experience, creating a living canvas that changes with the time of day. Glass plays a starring role in luminous architecture. Whether curved or flat, tinted or crystal clear, it dissolves barriers between interior and exterior. Walls become fluid, boundaries fade, and the outside world becomes part of the composition. It's openness, not just physically, but emotionally and philosophically. True luminous design isn't just about light, it's also about shadow. Strategic use of shade adds depth and complexity, revealing nuances in material and space. These quiet contrasts create moments of intimacy and calm, making light feel more sacred, more considered, and more impactful. The palette of Luminous Living includes materials that respond beautifully to light: polished concrete, matte stone, brushed metal, and wood with soft luster. These surfaces don't just look good, they interact with daylight to create mood and dimension, becoming dynamic partners in the architectural experience. Modern luminous homes often feature expansive spaces, but their magic lies in proportion and flow. Open floor plans allow light to travel freely, while varied ceiling heights and sculpted geometry help define purpose and intimacy. It's not just about size, it's about rhythm, openness, and grace. There's something innately human about our connection to light. It affects mood, energy, and emotion. Luminous architecture taps into this truth, offering homes that don't just look good, but feel profoundly uplifting. Morning light energizes, afternoon sun calms, and twilight brings reflective peace. Luminous living aligns naturally with minimalism. In these homes, clutter is replaced with clarity, and ornamentation yields to light as the primary form of decoration. The result is a space that feels deeply luxurious, not through opulence, but through intention, honesty, and the quiet power of openness. Nature becomes part of the architecture in luminous living. Strategic openings connect interiors with the sky, trees, and garden landscapes beyond. Reflections of greenery on glass, dapples of sunlight filtered through leaves. These interactions bring warmth, grounding the home in a living, breathing environment. Every luminous home begins with orientation. Architects study how sunlight moves across the site, where it rises, sets, and lingers. By aligning the structure with the sun's path, they maximize natural light while mitigating glare and heat, creating spaces that are bright yet balanced. Internal courtyards offer a unique opportunity to channel light deep into a home's core. These oases bring brightness to typically dim spaces and offer visual relief with natural elements like water or foliage. It's an ancient concept reimagined for the modern minimalist lifestyle. Skylights aren't just functional, they're artistic. In luminous homes, these openings can be sculptural, casting dramatic light shafts and celestial patterns onto walls and floors. The effect evokes awe, reminding us of the sky's constant presence and ever-changing personality. Even artificial lighting in luminous homes becomes part of the poetry. Statement pieces, whether sleek linear LEDs or organic pendant forms, don't just provide function. They serve as artistic focal points, harmonizing with daylight and adding beauty, ambience, and identity to the space. Luminous Living leverages smart home systems to adjust lighting in harmony with natural rhythms. Automated blinds, circadian-friendly LEDs, and responsive dimming enhance comfort while preserving the purity of the daylight experience. It's modern tech with a soul, supporting the body's connection to nature. In luminous architecture, ceilings are more than structural, they're sculptural. From recessed lighting coves to subtle curves and vaults, the ceiling becomes a storytelling surface. How light plays across it defines mood and movement, turning a mundane surface into a source of beauty and intrigue. A limited color scheme allows light to do more. Whites, grays, and neutral tones act as blank slates for daylight to imprint its personality. Morning's golden hue, midday clarity, evening's soft glow. All become visible, dynamic, and deeply emotive in a monochrome interior. Water features, pools, fountains, reflecting ponds, amplify light's effect. Sunlight dancing on ripples, mirrored surfaces catching sky reflections. These elements introduce movement and serenity. Water becomes both a visual and acoustic dimension, enriching the luminous experience and elevating architectural serenity. Furnishings in luminous spaces are carefully curated. They're low profile, airy, and spatially considerate. Rather than dominate, they complement the light, enhancing flow, not obstructing it. The effect is a home that breathes, with every object carefully chosen to elevate the design story. In luminous homes, art is often sparse but powerful. Large blank walls aren't empty. They're canvases for light to perform. When art is present, it's carefully placed to interact with natural light, creating an ever-evolving gallery experience that shifts from dawn to dusk. Luminous homes make a statement at the threshold. Entryways are tall, open, and awash with light, welcoming guests with a sense of grace and clarity. These spaces immediately communicate the design intent, a celebration of volume, light, and effortless modern elegance. In luminous homes, bedrooms become sanctuaries. Morning sun pours in through soft filtered windows, awakening the senses gently. Evening lighting is subtle, warm, and soothing. These spaces respect the body's rhythm, offering not just comfort, but a feeling of harmony and deep peace. Bathrooms in luminous architecture are serene and sculptural. Translucent glass, backlit mirrors, and skylit showers elevate the experience. It's about more than cleanliness. These are spaces of renewal, where natural elements and soft illumination create a true retreat for body and soul. The modern kitchen is a place of connection, and in Luminous Living, it's also a space of clarity and inspiration. Daylight flows over stone countertops and wood cabinetry, while open shelves reflect warmth. It's where design meets function with graceful transparency. Even corridors are considered. Rather than dark passages, they're illuminated journeys, lined with artwork, open to courtyards or connected to skylights. They invite movement with intention, turning in-between moments into experiences that speak to the larger narrative of luminous design. The most powerful quality of luminous architecture is what you don't see. The feeling of peace, the subtle balance of light and stillness. It's an environment that respects silence, where design doesn't shout, but whispers with elegance and timeless calm. Though minimalist in spirit, luminous homes are never sterile. Because no 2 days are alike, no 2 moments of light are the same. The personality of each space evolves over time, creating a home that adapts, responds, and becomes deeply personal to those who live within it. From Japanese Zen to Scandinavian simplicity and Mediterranean openness, Luminous Living draws on global traditions while adapting to local climates and customs. It is universal and personal, timeless yet contemporary, a global design language spoken through the dialect of light. Luminous living is not a trend. It's a return to what matters. It's about living in spaces that honor light, space, nature, and soul. These homes invite us to slow down, to feel, to breathe. In the poetry of modern architecture, light is the most beautiful verse.